You want to improve your fantasy team? Of course you do. Well, this video will help. You want to add these players to enhance your team immediately. And let's start by saying you need to get the rookie Kyren Williams right now, because Cam Akers didn't play week 6 for a personal matter, and now he's on the trade block, and he might not ever play again for something that's going on behind the scenes in LA, which means Kyren Williams is in a fantastic spot to see a lot more usage. And now the rookie Kyren Williams, he ended up fracturing his foot at the start of the year, so he went on IR for 6 to 8 weeks, and since then it's been 6 to 7 weeks. And according to Adam Schefter, Kyren Williams, highlighted here, was going to have a huge role in the offense week 1 before this injury happened. He was potentially even going to be the RB1 ahead of Darrell Henderson. So obviously this is fantastic, and an offense that is still quality, gets to the red zone and scores touchdowns. You're going to want to have Kyren Williams. And not only is Kyren Williams an elite pass protector, which will keep him on the field more, but also he is a fantastic pass catcher, having 35 plus receptions in back-to-back college years. If you have 20 or more catches as a running back in college, that's a good season. He ended up clearing a 10% target share in his last 2 years of college. Anything above 8 is quality for a running back. And his 42 receptions last season were top 5 amongst all college backs. Add him and this next RB. And we'll go from a rookie to a veteran in D'Onta Foreman, who is the clear backup right now in Carolina after some reports this week, and then the usage he saw. He ended up seeing 10 of the 14 backup snaps ahead of Chuba Hubbard. And a quick math there is he was seeing over 70% of the backup snaps this week, but that's not all. There's some major news going on right now in Carolina, and it has to do with one Christian McCaffrey. You see, according to both Ian Rappaport and even Adam Schefter, so this is a legit report right now, the Panthers are receiving some significant and serious trade offers from Christian McCaffrey, and the Panthers, who are basically in rebuild mode, fired their coach, don't have a quarterback, they're listening to these calls. And if McCaffrey was to get shipped off, D'Onta Foreman goes from just being a solid handcuff to now a potential top 20 running back in fantasy. And as a starter last year, in 7 games where he saw at least 10 or more carries, he averaged over 12.5 fantasy points and over 19 opportunities per game. He was given the workhorse usage in Tennessee when Derrick Henry went down, and this is why they signed him, in case this happened to McCaffrey. Now that usage translated to Foreman being a top 25 running back in 83% of his starts last year. That should not be on the waiver wires. That should be at least in your bench or flex spot. So grab Foreman and this rookie wide receiver. And that's going to be David Bell, who you should be stashing right now, the Cleveland Browns rookie. Because you see, on Sunday in week 6, he ended up playing 44 snaps, which is a career high and season high 63% of the snaps, but that's not all. Because Bell also ran 33 routes, and this is significant. 33 routes, anything above 28 to 30 is great usage, and here's why this is really, really important for his usage. Heading into this game, he was only averaging 11 routes run per game, so he tripled his usage in one game. And now they threw a little bit more in this one because they couldn't get the running game going, but this is still good usage. He ended up playing a season high in snaps and routes. And now this is not totally shocking, because as the season goes on, rookies start to get more involved. And if Bell's going to see more usage, it's encouraging because he knows how to get open. See for yourself. You see, David Bell earned 29% of his team's targets in college, which is borderline top 10% of all time. And as a 19-year-old true freshman, he ended up posting over 1,000 yards as a starter, again, as a 19-year-old. Then there was the COVID year, so that gets a little bit halted there in terms of total production in just 6 games. But then he goes for 1,300 yards last year. He is productive and knows how to get open. So get him and this NFC rookie. And before I state who that is, it has to start with the fact that Randall Cobb was carted off this past week, and this is really sad because he's an older receiver, and if this is indeed a season-ending injury to his ankle, it might be the end of his career. Now, we do hope he's okay, but if he does miss time, Christian Watson will end up seeing the bulk of that slot usage. Now, Watson did miss this last game, but he's expected to come back, and Amari Rodgers is somebody who's been a special teams returner for the Packers, but he's not somebody who's ever been able to get open in the slot in the NFL. And so far this season, Watson actually ranks second amongst all Packers wide receivers, only behind Randall Cobb, with how many targets he's seeing in the slot compared to his total targets. 63% of his targets right now, Watson, the rookie, are from the slot. And this is encouraging because he's a unique athlete and he's available on the majority of waiver wires. He's actually a top 1% athlete of all time, meaning at his size, around 6'4", 210, 215 pounds, he has a build somewhat like a T. Higgins. There's not many dudes like him. He's as unique as it gets. He has a top 5% catch radius, speed, and burst. All of those things are very enticing if he can just get some targets. So pick up and stash Watson, but then avoid this veteran RB. And it may seem difficult to do so, but I'm avoiding Kenyon Drake even after his nice week 6. You see, this past week, Kenyon Drake ended up playing double the snaps as J.K. Dobbins, but it was because J.K. Dobbins was sat down the second half of the game because his knee tightened up. And this is really concerning because Dobbins dealt with a multi-ligament injury, which means multiple parts of his knee that he had to recover from, which has a high re-injury rate. And Dobbins leaving the game allowed Kenyon Drake to go over 100 yards. He had a 30-yard touchdown run in this one, but he only had 11 touches in the game, but he did post 20 fantasy points. So there's a chance Dobbins does miss time, but I don't want to be adding Kenyon Drake because he's been largely inefficient this season. You see, Kenyon Drake ranks 66th in running back efficiency this year, and it's not like he just saw 20 plus touches. He saw 11 touches. Lamar Jackson is still back there to take touches, and so is this next running back who's about to to return in Baltimore. And that would be Gus Edwards, who's nearing a potential return as soon as this week. And if Dobbins does miss time, Edwards might be the guy to see the bulk of the opportunities, because Edwards is one of the most efficient running backs of all time. That sounds crazy to say that, but check this out. Since 2018, only Nick Chubb is more efficient than Gus Edwards on the ground, but that's not all. Only 2 running backs ever have averaged 5 yards per carry across their first 3 seasons, and it's Nick Chubb and Gus Edwards. So add Edwards, who's available in 85% of Yahoo leagues, and then get this rookie tight end. And before we get to him, the reason why this tight end is available is because Cameron Brate was carted off with a head injury on Sunday, which is now going to open the door for the rookie in Cade Otton, who actually ended up starting in week 5 when Cameron Brate was out and saw a really encouraging role. Let's discuss. You see, Otton has seen his snaps increase all 4 weeks of the season until he got that start with no Cameron Brate in week 5. He plays 96% of the snaps, basically never leaves the field, runs 48 routes on 52 Brady dropbacks. This is elite usage. This is rare usage for any tight end, let alone a rookie. And what that led to was 7 targets. Again, translation, the dude didn't leave the field. Now, him being able to earn targets isn't too surprising because that's all he did in college. You see, Cade Otton had a 32% dominator rating in college, meaning he earned 32% of his total team's production, which is top 8% of all time. And for reference, George Kittle was very dominant in college, but he only earned 23% of his total team's offense, top 28% of all time. So Cade Otton is a really dominant tight end, and now he's paired with Tom Brady in a high passing offense. So go get Cade Otton and put a waiver claim in for him, and then also get this second-year wide receiver. And that would be Terrace Marshall in Carolina, who there's a lot of things going on here, so let's break it all down. We could start with the fact that he returned from injury last week and saw a pretty decent role. He saw 4 targets on just 40% of the snaps. He was somewhat limited in that game, but he basically came back to splitting the wide receiver 3 reps with Shi Smith. Now he's going to see a lot more usage because of the Robbie Anderson shenanigans. Because as Field Yates tweeted yesterday, after multiple arguments with coaches on the sidelines, Panthers interim coach Steve Wilks actually kicked out Robbie Anderson from the game. There's a real chance he's never playing for the Panthers again. And if this ends up happening, it's going to help the second-year player out of LSU, a former second-round pick in Terrace Marshall. Because Marshall would end up taking on Robbie Anderson's role on the outside like he did in this game when Anderson was kicked out, which is 88% of the snaps and a very strong over 30 routes run per game. Now, this is strong usage, especially for a talented, bigger second-round pick who has red zone upside. Add him and this rookie wide receiver. And it's a man that we've been talking about for a couple of weeks now, but Wan'Dale Robinson has finally arrived, and you need to get him now. It's going to be your last chance to. Now, in this game, he actually ranked 5th on the Giants in his snaps with playing just 15 snaps, but it was because he was limited returning from injury. The encouraging part, he ran 11 routes and was targeted on 4 of his 11 routes. He actually led the Giants in targets on just 15 snaps. And on those 15 snaps, which ended up being just 25%, so he only played a quarter of the game. Normally, he'll play 3/4 plus of the game. He still earned nearly 13 fantasy points. And the good news is you can expect his role to increase as soon as next week because he didn't suffer any setbacks in this game. But that's not all. It's going to increase to him being a starter because that's what he was doing in the preseason, and the dude knows how to get open. You see, Wan'Dale Robinson in college has the highest target share that I've ever seen of a wide receiver. 39.3% is top 1% all time. I've never seen one this high. He knows how to get open and command targets. And now it helps that there's not that much target competition for the Giants, so stash him and this RB. Because for the first time this season, only 2 running backs were used in the Bills' backfield, not 3. Those 2 running backs, Devin Singletary, the starter, and then the rookie James Cook over Zach Moss. Yes, that's right, over Zach Moss, because Moss was a healthy scratch for this game. This happened to Moss a couple times last year in spots where they didn't think that they would use him. Matt Breida was played instead, but James Cook, this means that they trust him. The translation here, the Bills trust James Cook more than Zach Moss, at least on some level. And it's hard not to because you just spent the second-round pick on the guy, and he's been good when given opportunities this year. Yes, he fumbled early in the season, but the rookie James Cook, the brother of Dalvin Cook, is averaging 6 yards per touch, which actually ranks top 10 in the NFL right now. It's a limited sample, but the dude's been good when given the ball. And now the Bills go on their week 7 bye, which is important because coaches make adjustments on their bye weeks, especially for rookies. Which means that just 1 week from today, we might start to see a larger role for James Cook. Add him, but avoid this next backfield. And it's crazy to say this about the Chiefs backfield, but just don't add these dudes. You see, this past week, they ended up using 3 running backs still, but the split got even worse. You had Jerick McKinnon still seeing the majority of the snaps here with 29 for actually the 5th time this season out of 6 games he's led the backfield in snaps, but it was just 1 more snap than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then the rookie Isaiah Pacheco, who's mainly been seeing a lot of blowout run or late in the game run, he ended up playing 10 meaningful snaps, 15%, which is significant because just last week alone against the Raiders, he only ended up seeing 3% of the snaps. So now this condensed the backfield and made it even messier. And then there's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who played 28 of the 67 snaps, which was 40% of the snaps, which if you take out the first game of the blowout week where he ended up losing a lot of snaps because of the blowout, this is actually his worst usage of the season. And now Clyde's fantasy points have dropped in 3 straight games, all the way down to just 3 points this past week. Avoid this messy backfield in all areas. Sit Clyde Edwards-Helaire and don't add McKinnon or Pacheco. But you do want to add this next wide receiver. And we said he was a must-add last week, and he still is. It's Van Jefferson. Because Van Jefferson is a field stretcher, and the current wide receivers out there next to Cooper Kupp aren't stretching the field at all. It's limiting this offense. Ben Skowronek and Allen Robinson have one combined deep reception across 6 games now. That is absolutely terrible. And to make matters worse, Ben Skowronek ranks 85th amongst wide receivers in yards per route run, an efficiency metric this season. That is not good. So now here's what you need to know about Van Jefferson. Unlike those other two dudes, Van Jefferson was averaging 1 deep target per game last year, and he was number 6 against man coverage at earning fantasy points, meaning that he was able to create big plays and connect on those with Matthew Stafford. So Jefferson is likely to return any week now. Go get him because he'll be inserted right back into this offense, see downfield usage, and probably 30 routes a week. That leads to upside. So you want Jefferson, but you want this next veteran even more. And that would be Michael Gallup, who is coming off of by far his best usage of the year in his 3rd game back from injury. You see, Gallup played 76% of the snaps, 51 total snaps in this game, which led to a season high in snaps, in routes run in 31, and also in targets. He had 7 targets after having just 8 targets in the 2 previous games combined. And this is fantastic because he did this with Cooper Rush, who did not look good against that Eagles defensive line last night, but now he's about to get Dak Prescott back. As you can see right here from Patrick Walker's tweet, Dak Prescott, after the game when asked when he'll be back, he said, yeah, next week is the plan to come back. And he seemed very confident in that, and he ended up stating it multiple times. And this is important because Michael Gallup, in 24 career starts with Dak Prescott, averages 8.5 targets per game and over 14 fantasy points per game. This is clear top 24 usage, but Michael Gallup is available in over 50% of leagues. Go get him. And then after that, you want to get the Patriots rookie wide receiver. And if you're paying attention, we've talked about him before, but it's Tyquan Thornton. And the rookie ended up playing 40 total snaps, which was a season high 57% of the snaps, and it led to 7 touches. Those 7 touches actually included 3 rushes, 4 receptions on 5 targets, and he had 2 total touchdowns in this game. He went off for over 20 fantasy points, the rookie. Now, there's a clear issue why the usage increased for Thornton. Part of it has to do with getting healthier from injury, but the other part is other injuries on his team. You see, Nelson Aguilar missed this game, and he's been dealing with injury, the veteran, so that's one reason. And the second reason is Kendrick Bourne actually left this game after playing just 4 snaps with injury. So the clear wide receiver 3 had to be Thornton, but he earned his role. Even if these guys come back, I think Thornton, the guy they spent a 2nd round pick on and has dynamic speed and versatility, is going to remain a starter. And it's not shocking that he was able to produce when he got the opportunity. That's why they took him in the 2nd round. He was a great college producer. He knows how to earn targets. As you can see right here, he earned 30% of his team's targets in college, which was top 10% of all time. So Thornton is definitely worth picking up, and so is this material. And that would be the fantasy cheat sheet that is going to help you win your fantasy leagues every week and at the end of the year. Beat your friends. That is the goal. And that material that will help you win includes things like waiver wire tiers, rankings and projections, player notes, and more. And the biggest thing about all this, as you can see right here, if you don't end up winning your fantasy league, the one-time payment of $10 to get this cheat sheet for the entire year, it will be refunded to you. Yes, this is risk-free. That's how confident I am in this. So if you want to enhance your chances of actually beating your friends and winning your league, you can click the link in the description right now to learn more about this risk-free cheat sheet. And now you should also consider adding Samaje Perine. We've talked about him in waivers so far this year because he's the clear backup for Joe Mixon. He played 82% of the backup snaps over Chris Evans this past week. Here's the main reason why you want him. Yes, he's a nice handcuff, but he's behind Joe Mixon, who is a high usage player. Mixon on the season ranks top 5 in running back usage, seeing over 21 touches per game. And when you're seeing that high of volume, there's an increased chance of injury. Now, of course, we're not going to be rooting for that injury, but we at least have to be aware of the realistic outcomes here, and here's your takeaway. Mixon will continue to see this usage and still have those chances of injury, a higher chance because of that usage, which allows Samaje Perine to potentially be a 3-down back at some point this year. Add him before that happens, and the same can be said for this next RB. And we head over to the 5-1 New York Giants, coming off of wins against Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers. Fantastic. And we look at Matt Breida, a backup running back. You see, he's not any type of threat to Saquon, but he's by far the clear backup here. Gary Brightwell only has 9 snaps on the season as the 3rd string back. Matt Breida in this game sees 85% of the backup snaps. And now this is important because before this season, Saquon Barkley missed 43% of his games the previous 2 years and has missed at least 3 games each of the last 3 years. And if Breida was to see at least 1 or 2 starts this year, the dude is a producer. He will likely produce for you. You see, in Breida's career of about 5 seasons of total play, he actually ranks top 20 in yards per touch during that time. He is very effective, averaging over 5 yards per touch. So go get Breida and maybe 1 or 2 other guys from this video to enhance your roster, because that's the goal at the end of the day. Build the best roster to beat your friends. And if you're one of the 60% of people who aren't subscribed to this channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I would appreciate that. And then check out this next video that's going to pop up right here.